Okay, thank you everybody for logging in and joining us for the Directions Event Series webinar. This is the first time that we've done this, and we're excited to be working with the guys from Esri Australia. We're very grateful for their contribution and working with us on this webinar. And I thought I'd introduce the team from AAM. I've got myself, Robert Clout, the Business Development Manager for our GeoSolutions business. I've got my colleague, Chris Morris, who you're going to hear from. Chris Morris is the Product Manager for our GeoCIRRUS solution. And also on the line, we've got Darko Radichevsky, that many of you will know, has been with us for some time. He's our AAM Technical Manager, and he's going to be really useful for some of the questions a bit later on. The webinar is powering the ArcGIS platform with the GeoCIRRUS data products, and it's going to be 30 minutes, and we're going to run through, starting off a little bit about who we are as an organization, talk a little bit about our GeoCIRRUS Origin, a couple of customer examples, but the best part is we're going to be showing you how to really leverage these data services and our content throughout the entire Esri platform. So you can really start to take advantage of this great content. So AAM, many of you will know AAM. I know a lot of the people on the line are existing customers of ours, and of course Esri Australia. So for the last 50 years, we've been capturing spatial data. And many of you will be using a lot of our spatial data, whether that be LiDAR data, aerial photography. Many of you will be existing users of our aerial photography. We do a lot with the satellite providers. We have access and we are partners with a number of the satellite vendors, including Digital Globe. We do a lot with thermal imagery. We have 3D city models over all the major cities in Australia, and also a number of these cities across Asia Pacific. And we do a lot with BIM, so BIM models. We do a lot of laser scanning, fleet of UAVs, and we obviously do a lot of the infrastructure asset mapping for a lot of the major utilities across Australia. Some of you will also be aware of our terrestrial and mobile laser scanning, and we are also incorporating a lot of indoor mapping now. And one of the things that we're doing a lot of is now combining those ingredients together to provide bigger solutions for our customers. Working with our partners and being able to combine those ingredients together, for example, into a full 3D city model, and incorporating those ingredients, whether those ingredients be street level photography from our MLS, vegetation mapping, potentially water bodies from our bathymetry solutions, and obviously terrain imagery and complex 3D buildings. And we've been doing this for a long time, and probably the biggest thing that's changed over the last few years hasn't been so much the quality and the accuracy of the data. It's more about how people consume that information, how they consume it, how we deliver it, with the idea that people are needing to be able to consume that data quicker than ever before, sooner than ever before, but also they need to be able to consume that anytime, any place, anywhere, and on any device. So utilizing our GeoCIRRUS Origin product and being able to then consume that throughout the whole range of great technology from our friends from Esri Australia, and being able to consume that data to be able to make decisions quicker, being able to make decisions easier, and with the best possible information that's available. And those decisions can be complex decisions, or even something as simple as show me the shortest path from A to B. So this is an example that's actually come up in the last week from one of our customers, where they wanted to find the shortest path from A to B. And this blue line was the path that they were provided. It caused a bit of confusion initially, where they thought, well, how can this be the shortest path from A to B? Because at the moment, the information that they had on screen was just their imagery. Thankfully, this customer has easy access to all the best quality information. So they actually then plugged in their LiDAR data and included their LiDAR data in their visualization of this path. And by getting access to the best information available, they could see that actually the path from A to B was this blue line. That's a great simple example of where having access to the best quality information can really start to influence the decisions that you make. And this was one of our resource companies, where by being able to get access to this, in their case, 20,000 square kilometers of LiDAR and imagery. Great data that in the past, maybe 5-10 years ago, would have been linked to a small team. Even a year ago, we were still delivering to this organization the data purely on a hard drive, and it would sit within a particular group within that organization. But by doing things differently now, that organization now gets access to that data across the entire organization, and everybody has access to that data. This has changed the way that they do decisions by enabling shareholders to be able to view that data in ArcGIS Pro for a 3D web scene. Their power users are making decisions through slope and then doing greater analysis. A lot of their teams can now visualize their well pads, visualize their infrastructure that's in the middle of Queensland, difficult, challenging terrain, but by sitting at their desktop and utilizing this content as a service and being able to consume, so you can see in this case, this is ArcGIS Pro, and being able to visualize that LiDAR and imagery data within some really powerful solutions. So it's really transformed how that company is utilizing that data, enabling all parts of the organization to make better decisions, quicker decisions, and information underpins every part of their organization. So when we talk about GeoCIRRUS Origin, that's just a very quick example of how some of our organizations are utilizing that data. Now, my colleague Chris Morris, he's now going to run you through a bit more detail about what this GeoCIRRUS Origin can do for you. Chris, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So as Rob talked about there has been a change in how data is really being delivered to our customers, and that's seen us moving from delivering hard drives to actually delivering content over the web. And GeoCIRRUS really represents an evolution in that change. It enables us to serve premium content directly to our customers using a web delivery method. Now, GeoCIRRUS Origin is built on top of the Esri platform, and that has some great advantages. Not only can we take advantage of all the functionality that Esri provides, we can also do that and make it much more easy for us to serve information to you. So that really means that we manage the hosting of information, we manage the updating of that information, and then we serve it to you so you can consume it in your application of choice within the Esri product stack. So let's look at this a little bit further. So we've used this term Esri Origin, and it's how we describe this particular product set. So as any GIS professional will tell you, the origin of a great map is the data that sits in the background, and that's really what we're trying to do here with GeoCIRRUS Origin. So Origin is capable of serving multiple data types, so whether that's aerial imagery, satellite, LiDAR information, digital terrain models, point clouds, 3D, all these different types of data sets we can serve out of GeoCIRRUS Origin and into the Esri product sets. Now, where possible, we use those wonderful Esri REST services that we're provided, but we also serve the information out in open standards such as WMS and WMTS. Now, what's in behind this is pretty straightforward. I'm going to pop up a bit of an architecture diagram now. Don't get freaked out by the diagram. It's really pretty simple. So GeoCIRRUS sits on top of the Amazon cloud, and that means that we have high availability, flexibility, and reliability, and it enables us to serve our information directly into whether it's ArcGIS Online, whether it's Portal, whether we're serving it into products like Pro, or whether we're serving it into custom applications that perhaps have been built using Web App Builder. So when you combine these different services and you combine the power of the Esri platform, we really believe that we've got something here that can help improve the efficiency within businesses. So let's move on a bit and let's start to talk about imagery. So whether you're local government, whether you're civil engineering, whether you work in the utility space or in resources, you recognise that having good quality imagery is really a must to enable you to do your, to be able to do your business. Now, what I have here is some of the data sets that we have for Sydney. I'll just take a couple of seconds to fire up here. But what you'll be able to see is great quality imagery that we have for the Sydney Opera House. Now, you may have noticed here that I'm using a story map, and the great things about story maps is that they're interactive. So I'm going to zoom right out now, and I'll show you the coverage that we have. It's a little wider than that. So this is just for the Sydney area. You can see how much data, or imagery in this case, that we have for the Sydney region. Then move on a bit and let's go and look at Brisbane. What you'll see here is our offices in Brisbane, and if you look very, very carefully, you might be able to see Rob sitting there. Now again, having this great quality imagery really helps your business being able to understand the context within which you might have other data sets. And again, we're streaming this information directly into your applications. So there's no need to get a hard drive, there's no need to process your data, there's no need to manage your data. We handle all of that for you. Now, imagery really is important, and what I'm going to show you now is a bit of a data comparison. So I'm firing up here a web app template, and what it enables us to do, it lets us compare two different data sets. So on the left here, we have the standard Esri basemap, imagery basemap, and on the right here, we have data coming from GeoCIRRUS. And as I move the map around, you can see here we've got this swipe in the middle that lets us compare the two. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit down to here, and what starts to become apparent is the different kind of quality in the imagery. Again, on the left here, we've got the Esri basemap, and on the right we've got GeoCIRRUS. And what you can start to see here, we have building lean, and it's just less, the resolution is just not as good. Now, I'm not really comparing apples with apples here, and so to be fair, I should clarify that. You know, this is satellite imagery that we're seeing here from Esri, and over here we're seeing aerial imagery. But what it does go to show is that, you know, if you really need this high quality imagery, then securing these kind of premium services is something you need to look at. I love the Esri basemap. It's one of the most used basemaps that Esri have, so that really stands testimony to how good it is. Now, what I want to be able to do next is show you how do we take this imagery that is hosted in GeoCIRRUS, and how do we actually push this into the applications that we might be using. So what we have here is, well, there's two things. So first, I'm going to show you how we are consuming imagery directly into ArcGIS Online, and I'm also going to show you how you're consuming 3D models, which will come on later as well into a scene. And then secondly, I'll show you that same thing, but this time consuming it in Pro. So try and follow along. I'll kind of talk you through what's going on. So here we are in our portal, or ArcGIS Online. We're searching for layers, and down the bottom here we have AAM's data from GeoCIRRUS Origin. And we can add that directly into our map, and as you can see, it's really good imagery. We can zoom in and see the resolution of that. Pretty straightforward. Now, what we can also do is then look at a scene view. A scene view is basically a 3D view, and here we're adding in some building data for Parramatta. But what we're also doing is streaming in some of that imagery underneath to provide context to the buildings that you see there. What we're going to be doing next is now doing the same thing but in Pro. So this is Pro. If you're not using it, you really should be. It's fantastic. And here we're streaming in both 3D models as well as that imagery. And again, I'm consuming this within Pro. And as you'll see, it's pretty snappy, and you can move around and really start to visualize and understand the environment that you're looking at. So moving on from imagery, we're now going to look at some different data sets. So here we have, I think, probably my favorite data set I'm going to show you today. And really that's because I'm a bit of a sucker for fantastic cartography. So this is a digital terrain model that we are hosting within GeoCIRRUS Origin, and we're serving it to the National Rangeland Alliance. And that's basically a group of farmers who are using this imagery to make important decisions about the placement of feed and water for their livestock. Now, if you're interested in this, you can go to the Locate conference in Melbourne, which is between April, I think, the 12th and the 14th, where the National Rangeland Alliance are going to be presenting the case study they've done here. So I'm just going to zoom in again, and you can start to see the real quality of this image. And it's not too much of a stretch to say that, you know, farmers are using this to make life and death decisions. You know, they really need to be able to place food and water resources in places that livestock can get to, and that's what this imagery provides. For me, you know, I'm not a farmer, but I look at this and I just think it's an amazing base map that these guys are using to make those decisions. Now, another way of making decisions, and Rob alluded to this a little earlier, is by using a point cloud. So here I'm going to load up a point cloud viewer, and it's worth saying here that what you're seeing here is being streamed into the viewer from GeoCIRRUS Origin. So this isn't something I've got locally cached, this is something that's being streamed into the viewer. And what it gives you is the ability to navigate around a particular location. In this case, it's a rail siding. And I can zoom in and move around and start to really understand the environment that I'm looking at. There are tools here that I can use to measure heights and distances, and it's these kind of tools that allow organisations to start looking at data like this and making decisions from the comfort of their own office. They don't need to go out on site, they don't need to drive many miles or fly to find these locations, and they don't have to worry about health and safety implementations either. They can do a lot of this work directly from their desktop. So point clouds is this, it's a relatively new and innovative way of viewing this information, and again, being able to stream this directly into your applications is a real bonus. So 3D data. If you have been following anything from Esri really recently, then you cannot have failed to notice the importance of 3D data and how it's becoming pervasive throughout the business world. So what we're doing here is we're loading up some data for San Diego. Now, I was at the Palm Springs Partner Conference just last week, and this information was demonstrated, and I thought it was so fantastic that it was worth showing here. Now, again, this data is being streamed in. Now, if any of you have been to the partner conference before, the Esri UC before, then you should recognise this building here. This is the major conference centre that the user conference is always held at. Now, what you can see here is lots of individual buildings, and the point really here is that each one of these buildings is an individual building. And the advantage of that is that you can start to swap those buildings in and out. So we have a nice building here, and as a planning consultant, I might like to say, well, what would happen if I took that building out and replaced it with something else? So that's what I'm going to do, and it's going to take a few seconds here to come through, but I'm replacing that building with a new design, and I want to be able to understand, well, what does that new building look like within this existing building footprint? Just hope it comes through. There we go. So it's a new design. What would that look like on this site? And this ability to swap different buildings in and out gives you a real understanding of how the urban landscape can change. What's also nice here is we've got these different buildings, and these buildings represent particular planning rules. In this case, you know, where San Diego designated areas for new buildings, and you can kind of see, well, what would the skyline look like if these buildings were built. Now that's enough of San Diego. I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to move to something a little bit more local. In this case, it's Parramatta, and quick thanks here to Bentley for helping us out with this. So what we have here is mesh data for Parramatta. And mesh data is a little different from what you saw at and San Diego. If you watch closely, you can actually see individual tiles being streamed into the view. So this is much like streaming imagery, apart from instead of imagery tiles, we're actually streaming in mesh tiles that give us our 3D buildings. And actually, you can see here it's a lot more than just buildings. We're also seeing heights of trees. We're seeing roads. We're seeing parks and so forth. So it's a really great visualization tool for understanding how a particular environment looks. I'm going to move on again and actually show you, well, how can we use this data? How can we use this data in Esri applications? Okay, so I'm going to play a video. And this video is going to show a couple of things. So we're going to start off within Pro, and what we're going to do is we're going to add our information. We're then going to add some 2D information. So we've added 3D, we're going to add 2D. And then we're going to apply a CityEngine rule to that 2D information to extrude it to represent new planning rules within the area. So here we go. So within Pro, we start with our base map, and we are dropping in some imagery, the imagery that you saw we consumed earlier on. And then we're also adding in our 3D buildings. Okay, so here are our buildings for Parramatta, and you can see that they are all being streamed into ArcGIS Pro. The next thing we're going to do is add some 2D information. So adding some road information and some parcel data. Okay, so that's the road information and parcel data added, and that's 2D information, but by dragging it into the scene view, we're converting it into 3D information. But at the moment, it's still quite flat. What we need to do is address the symbology. So we go to the symbology tab, go to our properties, and we load in a CityEngine or procedural rule. And this is going to affect how these particular parcels look based on the particular rule set that we've got. So we go off and we select the rule. And we apply that. And what you see is we've now extruded those building footprints based on that particular rule set. And that can have things like roof setback and so forth. Having done that, we might wish to share this information with somebody else, so we can create a web scene and host that in Portal or ArcGIS Online. So what you're seeing there is this content that's being streamed into the application. We're then combining that with 2D information that we are that's sitting on our hard drive, and then applying a procedural rule to those building sets to actually merge or mash up together streaming data and existing data that we have locally. So at GeoCIRRUS, we are partnering with some great data providers. So we're partnering with Map Data Services, or MDS, to provide their foundation map. This is a great map, and it's going to be streamed through GeoCIRRUS, and you can again consume that directly within your application. We are also working with HEMA maps, and HEMA maps have great content. Particularly useful for rural areas. They kind of provide 4x4 tracks and other content as well. We're in talks with Here Maps. We are able to provide their mapping application, base map, into Esri applications as well. Now, some of you may have seen vector base maps before. These are a new format that Esri has come up with, that instead of streaming raster, you're actually streaming vector into your viewer. So I'm going to pan over here to Sydney, and this is all vector information that we're looking at. And the great thing about vector base maps is that they are kind of intelligent. So I can actually rotate the map, and you can see that the labels rotate, particularly Sydney is rotating as I rotate the map. But much more than that, I can also change the symbology on the fly. So instead of having this kind of beige view of data, I can switch maybe to a night view to loading up exactly the same information, but it's symbolized in a different way. Now, Why am I showing you this? Well, we're going to be working with our partners to be able to deliver vector-based maps as well into your applications. How are we going to make this available? Well, we are going to be using Esri Marketplace wherever possible. Marketplace is a fantastic website to go to find data, to find apps, to find all kinds of things really that you can either download or stream into your application. And most of what you've seen here today is soon going to be within Marketplace for you to access. Now with that, I'm going to pass you back to Rob and some questions, I think.
Excellent. Many thanks, Chris. So we've had a few questions come in. So again, thank you to Chris. You did a great job. A lot of the questions that are coming in. So please do use the Q&A, and now would be a good time to answer any questions. So obviously one of the big things that people have been asking is obviously the pricing methodology. What we'd encourage anybody to do is if you are interested, we'd be very keen to talk to you. Please direct questions around the pricing and the licensing for this to geocirrus@aamgroup.com, or please do contact your Esri account manager or your AAM account manager, and we can give you a bit more details around the pricing side of things. And also one of the questions that's come up is around what exists right now. I think that's actually a really good question. So we do already have 3D building content across most of the major cities in Australia. So we have City of Sydney, City of Brisbane, City of Melbourne, City of Perth, a lot of the other major cities around Australia. So this is data that's available right now. The only thing that's really changed with GeoCIRRUS Origin is how we are now delivering that. So it's easier for you to be able to just seamlessly integrate into your Esri solution. So there is a lot of content that's available right now. So please, do contact us. Questions. How do you manage security on the services? Again, a very, very good question. Chris, do you want to answer how we manage the security of these services?
I was going to say exactly something to Darko, to be honest.
Okay, Darko, you listening in?
Yeah, I'm here. So the security at the moment is based on a couple of different methods. Right now, the security is based on HTTP basic authentication, and also we provide security via IP restrictions for organizations. And once we have this data in the marketplace, which will be very soon, this will be controlled through the name user allocation for the organization. So there's a couple of different ways for security there.
Excellent. So, Lee Tilley, can GeoCIRRUS content be consumed in ArcGIS for desktop? Absolutely, and it is currently being utilized by a lot of our customers in ArcGIS for desktop. So that's actually one of the more common ways that we do deliver our content as a service, and GeoCIRRUS Origin is really designed to fit across the entire Esri stack. So ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, and obviously a lot of the great 3D capabilities coming through 3D web scenes, etc. So absolutely is the answer to that. What LiDAR and imagery is available for Australian cities? Again, similar to the answer around 3D cities, we are regularly capturing LiDAR and imagery across the entire country. We have 14 planes constantly flying across the country and across the region. So we are regularly updating imagery and LiDAR across the major cities, and also a lot of the other areas outside of the major cities. So my answer to the questioner, please contact us if you have a particular requirement for any up-to-date data. We have a lot of LiDAR and a lot of imagery that is available right now. for you to be able to integrate straight into your solutions. Michael Chang, how about geoprocessing tools, functions? Absolutely. And look, that's something that we'd encourage you to talk to us, but also to talk to your Esri account manager about how we can utilize this content as a service to also be able to do more with that data. So the ability to be able to use this great content, but also then being able to do geoprocessing tools and greater functionality is something that we're really excited to be working closely with the guys from Esri Australia to be able to deliver greater solutions. Other questions? Darko, this might be a good one for you. So can you expand on how we can import CityEngine models to incorporate alongside the models that we were showing into the portal? You there, Darko?
Yep, no, I'm here. So when somebody creates data using procedural rules in CityEngine, essentially that data can then be exported into just in a geodatabase, so a multi-patch, and then that multi-patch will then be loaded in Pro, and then as we showed in the video, can then be shared across as a web scene. So simple answer is just from CityEngine, you'll go to multi-patch and you're good to go.
Excellent. Cool. What's the update frequency interval of your aerial base maps and LiDAR? Again, that really varies on the city and really does. So look, in general, it's certainly less than 12 months. So all the major cities are flown at least once a year, a lot of the time a lot more than that. It really does vary on the location. Again, we'd encourage you to talk to us based upon your specific requirements, and we can give you an idea on your particular area about what can and can't be done. So I'm having somebody pointing at a watch telling me we don't have a huge amount of time. So maybe a couple of other last questions. Can AAM provide regular updates? Absolutely. So that's one of the things that we do a lot for a lot of our resource customers and a lot of our councils, where we will provide regular updates and streaming that data straight into your Esri stack, so that you have not only the most up-to-date imagery possible, but also to give you that good catalog of imagery over a long period of time as well. So twice yearly, 3 times yearly, 4 times yearly. That's certainly something that we do a lot right now. So look, there are a few other questions, but so John, just wanted to hand over to you. Look, one of the things that we did want to mention, this is something that we're quite excited about bringing to the market. We want to talk to you. We want to work alongside the guys from Esri. One of the great things that's coming up is the Directions Live meetings that are coming up around the country. It's something that we were delighted to be involved in last year alongside the guys from Esri Australia. We will be attending a lot of those dates around the country. Please go to the Esri Australia website and register for your nearest event. I myself will be down in Melbourne at the Locate conference in about 3 or 4 weeks, where we will be presenting these again in a lot more detail. And the example that Chris mentioned around the NOM Spatial Hub, Phil Delaney, one of our good friends from the CRC, is presenting about that solution at Locate. So please come along, talk to us, learn a little bit more. But you don't have to wait till then. Contact us, contact the Esri guys, talk to your account manager, and we'd be delighted to answer any of these questions.
Thanks,
John?
Rob. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you've pretty much covered off on everything there. So yeah, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you, Rob, and Chris for your excellent work here. A very interesting and engaging presentation. So, I mean, just to recap, if you do have any follow-up questions, probably could you back up a slide and just show those emails? So yeah, feel free to get in contact with both Esri Australia and AAM. Catch us at the conferences locate and also the Directions Roadshow. Make sure that you register as the event will be coming to a city near you. Finally, don't forget that we will be posting this webinar online, so you can go in and review what you've seen today. And additionally, I appreciate that some of the questions might have slipped through the gaps. What we will endeavour to do is, between Esri Australia and AAM, we will go through and write up text answers for all these questions, and we'll either get them online or send them out as an email to all of the attendees. So yeah, sorry if we missed any of your questions, but we'll make sure that they are answered within the next week or so. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Again, thanks to the guys at AAM for helping us to put this on, and hopefully we'll see you all on the road, either at Locate or on the Directions Roadshow. Thank you very much, and yeah, take care.